Weigh-In is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Zealand season. Not only that, but something we're becoming very used to, more success across the Tasman. All of that to come on the show this morning. Michael Guerin, he's back and he's joining us for this morning's edition of Weigh-In. Michael, another wonderful weekend to celebrate. Later on in the show, we're going to have Bruce Sherrick.
We are. Good morning to you, Em. Big hi to everybody watching in an earlier time around the country or those watching offshore on YouTube. What a remarkable run. It's been quite incredible. 5 weeks, 4 New Zealand Group 1 winners in Australia, all female, female domination out of Pukekohe as well too, with jockey, trainer and mare winning the last Group 1 of the season. It's been such an incredible autumn, Em, but I'm not sure as wonderful as the Legato and the Prowess and the Imperatrice stories are. I'm not sure we've had a better story in New Zealand racing than the Pennyweka story over the last 3 weeks. Jim Wallace is going to join us on the show
really looking
today.
Forward to that, yeah.
So Sam Spratt and Bruce Sharrock, the boss of NZTR, to talk to us about a pretty pivotal and important time in New Zealand racing. Now, he can't discuss the details of the potential Entain deal, but we can discuss what NZTR would do if they get an injection of money, which could well be just around the corner. So, yep, locked and loaded for a very busy Monday morning here.
Yeah, it is. Let's start with our race reviews this morning, and we're going to start with the Group 1 here in New Zealand, the final Group 1 of the season, the Thoroughbred Breeders' Stakes.
By Dragon Queen, Carmen Line. Aromantic Oscillator's well back in the field. So is Mustang Valley. She's looking to clear, into the clear now. Wider out is Cool Change and further back Baton Bouge. 300 metres to go. Bell Clear made the lead. Coming after it now we've got Skew With. Also there as well as our Alley Cat, Carmen Line. Further out there we've got Lake Cray. Yeah, but it's Bell Clear burst away at the 100 metres. Led by 2. From in second spot is Skew With. But Bell Clear is absolutely bolted in the New Zealand Thoroughbred Breeders.
Look, she's worked an absolute treat. The track was just too wet for her at Wellington. She drew wide, and we said to Michael to go forward, and she really got up and travelling. And I said to Sam today, just go back and watch her 2 wins over the mile and watch her last start. I said, if you can just get a bit of cover or just get her travelling comfortably within herself, I said she's just got such a high cruising speed.
Well, I mean, it culminates what's been a good black type season for this horse as well. Of course, you picked up the Breeders about a month ago, and now you can get the ultimate goal, the Group 1. Yeah,
look, definitely. Look, the owners are fantastic clients. David races a lot of horses, you know, a few horses with me, and to get this is just the pinnacle for him too.
Congratulations, Lisa. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, it was a great win, wasn't it, for Lisa Latta and Sam Spratt. Belclair doing the job with ease. Sam Spratt is on the line to talk through her most recent Group 1 success. Sam, first of all, a huge congratulations. And as we heard there from Lisa, followed instructions to the letter. Tell us how it all unfolded there on Saturday.
Yeah, sorry, you have to excuse me. I've actually come down a bit sick after it all, and it wasn't self-inflicted either. But yeah, no, it all worked out really well. She jumped fair, but I didn't sort of bustle her up. But she sort of managed to just cruise forward down obviously the big long straight at the back, and yeah, got across really nicely. And she just travelled into it so well, and I mean, she was still travelling at 300, hadn't even really gone for her, and when I did, she just, you know, she had an explosive turn foot.
And Sam, for you personally, I know you said in the interview afterwards that your aim was to get to 20. This is number 18, and it must be really satisfying for you to ride at the elite level again.
Yeah, it was great. I'd always sort of thought, because I don't really know why. I guess it's just because it's a rounded number, but yeah, no. And then I sort of thought, probably isn't going to be a huge chance, but yeah, I mean, it's not a be all and end all if I do, but I just thought it would be quite cool to finish off in the 20s. So no, it'd be good.
Congratulations, Sam. About 18 months ago, you and I stood on the birdcage at Thoroughbred, and you told me you were thinking of retiring and becoming a media personality. Why didn't you, and aren't you glad you didn't?
Yeah, well, yes and no. It was just after I had broken my second ankle. The summer before that, I broke my collarbone, and then that next summer I broken one ankle, and then I come back and few days later broke my other one, and yeah, I just sort of thought, maybe this is a sign, and I had been doing a little bit of it and I really enjoyed it, and so I just sort of thought about it, but it was actually Stephen McKee that sort of said to me, you still got a bit of life left in you. So I guess in a way I've got him to thank, but because I pretty much had sort of made up the decision to stop riding till he sort of said, you don't need to. So, yeah, and it's sort of been not too bad since then. Get a bit of momentum going, and yeah.
Sam, you always seem to be enjoying yourself on racetracks, and we love your energy, particularly when you win races. Are you still enjoying it as much as you were 10 years ago? It's obviously harder to get these Group 1 rides all the time. Are you still enjoying being out there on a Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely I'm not enjoying it. I mean, I ride horses. I mean, I was supposed to be out on a hunt today, but obviously I'm a bit crook, so I haven't been able to. But I mean, my days off, I go and ride more horses. I just enjoy the horses and the riding, and that's definitely not a problem with it. I love it, and the people, and I don't have to, waste hard, so it makes it a lot easier. But no, I really enjoy the riding side of things, but I think it was just more a fact that I just kind of was like, there's a point you've got to stop, and it's just, it's hard to know when that point is. I don't know, but I just sort of thought, maybe this is a sign, and maybe this was the time to stop. But yeah, as I said, Stephen said, no, you still got life. So I have carried on, but. Yeah, that's just hard to know. When do you? How long's a piece of string, I guess. But yeah, no. But it's been good, and as I said, I still thoroughly enjoy it, and I love going to the races and time in the jockeys room with all the other girls. Obviously we're all good friends, and it is great fun.
Sam, it wasn't just about the Group 1 on Saturday, was it? You actually rode a treble on the day, of course, 2 for Tony Devicic as well, and it really capped off a great day. Tell me about those 2 victories too.
Yeah, no, they were good. It was so good, and it was so good for Tony as well. He's only got the couple of horses, and he's very passionate about it, and so no, it was awesome. I mean, they'd both gone really, really good races last start, so I was sort of quietly confident with them, and they had both won, and it was good for Power. He obviously showed a lot of early on in his career, but then had the little bit of the setback with his back. But he seems to be holding together at this stage, so hopefully he can kick on and get another win or 2.
Sam, you've ridden a lot at Pukekohe over the years, and the track there has been really busy with Ellerslie closed. How's it been from a jockey's point of view? How's it been riding, and how's it feel underfoot?
It's good. No, it's held up really, really well. Jason and that, come in and they've done a really good job. It is holding up really well. Probably been fairly lucky with the weather, but then saying that, we've had some days that it's been horrendous all week, and then come Saturday, it's actually come back and dried out really well. So no, I thought it, it is really, really holding up well. I mean, there's nothing quite like riding at Ellerslie, but I think, I think everyone involved has probably been, and I think even the big days, they were quite surprised, the crowds that turned up. I don't think Paul Wilcox and that were expecting as, bigger crowds that did actually turn up and support the days that were going to be at Ellerslie, but no, all the locals really come together and had supported it, and it was it was really good. And there might what looks like we'll possibly be back there again next summer, so hopefully it will be even bigger, because everyone that I spoke to really enjoyed their times, the days there. So no, hopefully they'll come back next summer and yeah, it'll be good.
Sam, thanks so much for your time this morning, and well done to you and Lisa Latta for combining for that Group 1 win, and no doubt we'll see you out and about next season at the top level again.
I hope so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, very unique person, Sam. She's just got that lovely energy, which is, you need different type of people on racetracks, and she's so enthusiastic. Lisa Latta, though, incredible month.
Unbelievable season, yeah.
Her season was really good anyway, but the month, just that clump of 3 very different horses, winning an Auckland Cup, winning a Group 1 2-year-old race, and then Belclare getting a Group 1, which is worth so much more than the stake money to her and her connection. So congratulations to them. And she absolutely thumped them.
Yes, she did.
It turned out to be the right race to go to, as you mentioned on the show a couple of weeks ago, because so many horses weren't there, but it was still a really nicely strong field. So well done to Lisa. A lot of hard work and a lot of travelling. It's bloody hard to go from where she lives to Pukekohe and back again and have that level of success. So to her and her staff, well done. Second horse, Skew Whiff, will go to the paddock. Tougher Waikato start. She's been back-to-back Group 1 seconds, and we know what it's worth for those horses to win. Our Alley Cat gets her Group 1 placing, which is great. Unlucky Pearl of Alsatian behind. And Mustang Valley, nothing went right from the weather to the barrier draw to the whole thing just didn't work for her. So gutsy play to bring her home, but she's now obviously finished for the season as well. But out of the race, the one horse who may continue onward, Aromatic, might head potentially to Brisbane for the campaign there, because Xantabulous may be going for Mark Walker, and he won't send a lot of horses to Brisbane, but often, as you know, it can be wet in Brisbane, which would suit Aromatic, and she might have a chance to go across there and race on. But Group 1 season finished, it seems, an awfully long time since the first Group 1 of the season. Dark Destroyer won the first Group 1 of the season. God, that seems a long time.
Yeah, it does. You asked me before the show started who won the first Group 1, and I was racking my brains. But yeah, it's been a wonderful season at that, and we look forward to doing it all again next year. Also mentioned to Perincanto, he sired Belclare, and that was his 7th individual Group 1 winner for Little Avondale stud. Let's move along to Habana, and we've seen the Brendan and Joe Lindsay colours at the top of the winners' enclosure many times at Pukekohe, and Habana added to that.
He travelled boldly to the lead. Habana's now been popped the question by Kennedy. Wider out, Bella the Ball's looking to run on. Then came Zayla. At White Noise went to the lead at the 200. Put a length and a half on Bella the Ball, and now Habana. It's White Noise, Bella the Ball, Habana between the two. Having a great battle here. Habana's lifting under the urgings of Warren Kennedy. He'll get the first 3 on the...
He's just done fantastic well. This is obviously the track that he loves the most. Big well done to Chris and to Lance and the guys at the stable. He's had his issues, this horse, and they've nursed him along and brought him along the right way, and a really courageous win today. You know, he tackled the third horse, the second horse came at him, but he wouldn't get his head behind. He just kept fighting all the way.
There was a rise in weight today. There was a few things against him. Also, how did the race pan out, because you were down on the inside?
Yeah, look, he's had a couple of issues, like I said before, so we have to really work him sparingly. So I came into the race, I wanted to give him as much of an economical run as I could, so I got on the rail and didn't really ask him till we went through the 400 to make his challenge and go for it, and just testament to his courage. You know, I thought he could lay down here, but he really fought on and won a really good race today.
Well, he's 4 from 4 on this track, and of course in 2 weeks' time they're looking to come back here for a Group 2 spoil too, and it sets him up nicely over the 1600 metres now, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that is his target. He is going for that, but yeah, he's done nothing wrong. Can't fault him. 16 will be up his alley. He'll relish it, and yeah, hoping for a big day in 2 weeks.
And certainly deserves a chance at the Group 3 Easter Handicap, doesn't he? Because he's just been in really rare form, and that was a tough win.
Yeah, and the Prince of Pukekohe, Warren Kennedy, whose strike rate there is unbelievable. The first 3 on Saturday, ran second in the 4th on the card. So he's publicly said he loves riding at Pukekohe. It's a lot closer to the tracks he used to ride on back home in South Africa because of the longer straight. I thought this was a nice trial, not just for the winner for the Easter. So for those who haven't had the chance to get to Pukekohe, the last of the major ones for the season's on the 22nd. And all 3 horses home here, including White Noise, who I thought could probably go to the Easter off quite a nice mark, were good enough there to suggest there's a bit to like about it. Even the Perfect Pink was quite good. So I think the Easter's going to stack up as a really nice race. Habana's gone from unknown to really high up in the ratings incredibly quickly. And if he happened to win an Easter, I don't know what he would do next season. I mean, it'd be hard to keep him in the country. Or maybe just go to weight for age or set weights in penalty races, because he's very quickly getting right up in the handicap. So well done to Lance Noble, but also to Chris Smith, who's a stable foreman, who's been doing a really good job, because Lance has been bouncing around over both sides of the Tasman. Yeah, but I think the Easter's going to be a really interesting race. Just on Puke, well done to everybody involved, not just with Auckland Thoroughbred Racing and the Ellerslie component, but of course the counties component. I've been out there a couple of times. I've had no complaints. The track's been great. The carnivals have been really well done, considering it's not Ellerslie. And I was really worried when Ellerslie closed down that we would have a real drop-off of quality. I don't think, Emily, the racing's dropped off at all. I think it's a different place, but from the racing point of view, I think it's been really good.
I think it's been really good, and I think the locals, as we heard from Sam, they've really embraced it, and more of a family atmosphere, but it's certainly been doing the job and has been appreciated. So yeah, lots to look forward to, and if it has to stay there next season, I don't think that it's a particular disaster. The next race that we look at from Pukekohe is of Fellini. Maybe not the most prestigious race on the programme, but it was the milestone that was important.
Churchillian looks to quicken up, a tackle by Academy Award. Pour the Wine is coming after these, and behind them Rudyard, Desert Island, then followed by Fellini. Further out there we've got Insatiable and Good Spot at the 200. Pour the Wine made the lead here. Coming after Desert Wine, also battling away now is Fellini coming through. It's Pour the Wine, Fellini out after it late. Pour the Wine, Fellini's going to it. Got it. Fellini for Smiling Joe Cameroon, and will just beat Pour the Wine.
Well, of course, Michael, Fellini's victory put Mark Walker into the record books, because that was his 161st win of the season, which is the most anybody's trained, and that included 5 Group 1 level, 31 black type triumphs. And he, of course, goes ahead of Jamie Richards' record previously.
Look, it's a slightly odd one, this. So first of all, congratulations to Mark and TRKL and everybody who's invested their money into their syndicates. So it has been a total and unmitigated giant success.
Demolition job.
Exactly. Well, Mark's return has been enormous. It started April the 1st last year. So he's won 7.4 million in stakes. We'll get to the unusual part of this very quickly. But that's more than Jamie and Mark together last season won. So it's a New Zealand record. Now, they're going to lose about 160,000 of that, more than likely, because, as everybody knows, Tokyo Tycoon's returned to positive sample A. It will, if sample B, we don't know that comes back positive, it'll lose the Sistema. So while that set the record, they may get that win probably trimmed off them. But of course, Mark's going to win another 10 or 15 races this season.
We're so early, aren't we? We've still got so much to go.
Well, so the milestone may not prove to be the milestone. Fellini may eventually not prove to be the horse who breaks the record, but that could happen at Woodville today. It's going to happen. So Mark's going to end up winning somewhere like $7.5 million domestically. Imperatrice has won close to $1 million in Australia. They've still got a couple of horses who might head to Queensland, and we're going to have a new record somewhere in the 170s. That's an incredible body of work when you consider how good Jamie was at his job. And I think in the spring I was talking to lots of trainers who thought that, okay, Mark's not as scary as Jamie, but I think Mark was finding his way about these horses and his people and how it was all going to work. And then since then it's just been machine-like. So congratulations to him, to David, who embraced bringing him back. They've obviously been very close for a long time. But the numbers are so big now, that it's like, wow, can only possibly be considered a blinding success for Mark Walker to come back. And eventually no one's really going to remember who sets the records or what they all were, but they're going to be big.
Yeah, they are. Well, let's get you along to the Riverton Cup. They had their feature race, and it was taken out by the very well-related As a Thought.
Shoe-in, let's bring it on to the centre. Humbucker, Exchange, Taffy with me, homeward bound, and Kilowatt takes the lead. Wannabe in Paris, here's As a Thought coming through in the middle. Wide around Humbucker, then Exchange and the Growler. The leader Kilowatt, As a Thought is coming. As a Thought coming after Kilowatt. Kilowatt in front, they're cheering him home, Kilowatt, but As a Thought is lifting on the inside. And this year, for As a Thought, well done, Corey Campbell gets a home to beat Kilowatt.
The people at Riverton certainly getting behind the Riverton Cup. A big crowd on track to see As a Thought. Very well deserving win, Michael, placed last year and turns it around to get the victory this year.
Yeah, she had black type placings. Now she gets a black type win. And of course, she is worth an enormous amount of money for owners Willie Calder and the family there. I spoke to Lisa Vaughan, who trains the horse, last night. They're going to go to the Canterbury Gold Cup next time because she ran second to Prix de Freux in that last year. And then the connections need to sit down and say, what are we going to do with her? Because she is obviously a So You Think half-sister to Avantage, who sold for over $4 million. So As a Thought is worth a lot of money for the Calders. I doubt they're going to sell her because they're breeders. Lisa said that they might even try in Australia, give her a mini campaign there, get her in foal and bring her home. So she's worth an enormous amount of money, and that was part of a double at Riverton where they had a crowd of over 3,000 people. So well done to the club there. Where Avantage's sister won a race, and then Legato's sister or half-sister won a race. So here's Eminon, who, this was a really good ride from Diego. It wasn't expected to lead, and he punched out and got the lead and kept the tempo strong enough that a horse like Amber Echo was stretched too far over the 1400. So you're looking for the horse on the inside. Yes, she's the Burgundy half-sister to Legato, and she doesn't have black type. Now, once she may get some, these are back-to-back wins for her over 1400 metres for Lionel Dobbs, then she's worth an enormous amount of money too, Em. So to think that Avantage's sister and Legato's sister, halves, were winning a double at Riverton, it's pretty heady stuff for that part of the world.
Well-connected ladies.
Yes, it's a ladies' show here.
It most definitely is this morning. We also had a first victory for Tony Davies. Congratulations to you. Rode a first winner during the week, and a big congratulations. Family was on hand to watch Dad and brother Chase enjoy this win. Tequila Spirit winning at Wanganui on Thursday.
Parents labouring a bit back in behind these, and now Millie Mills is starting to run on. Diomedes, Tequila Spirit inside of it's really tough, not much between them. And then Heir Apparent now starting to wind up Asahi and Headline News. Diomedes, Tequila Spirit's too good though.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Last week on Weigh-In.
Right there, that's my life goals. That's honour there on Opie's back as we're boogieing down at day one of the championships. That's some life goals right there.
Oh, that is outstanding, isn't it?
Your head, you'd be right up there.
I don't know why
too.
all the time when we take the piss out of me, I've always got a bobble head. I don't.
It's not about you.
I get no respect on the show.
It's not about you.
But I tell you, he's going to love that little clip, Max. Max will just love that.
His ego just grows every week on this show, doesn't it?
By the time he's 20, he's going to be unbearable.
Unbearable, I know. Let's get to next on Weigh-In. You weigh in. Really like this week's winner of You Weigh In. We're nominating Janine Wallace. A big thank you to Alan Child, who is the winner of the $100 bonus bet this week. He says, Janine Wallace has been very passionate and an enthusiastic manager of the successful Galloping Weka syndicates for a number of years, and the recent victories of Pennyweka are thoroughly deserved. We are so thrilled for Janine and her family. Her efforts have enabled many 1% syndicate members to experience the thrills of racing good horses, and Alan says he is proud to be a Weka. Well done to the Pennyweka Syndicate. Great nomination. If you want to nominate your hero of the week, the details have just gone off the bottom of the screen, but they are there or available online. Well, let's get into reviewing our Australian action, a perfect segue to that. And of course, it was a New Zealand trained success at day 2 of the championships in the form of the very dominant Pennyweka.
Pavitra shows the way from Pennyweka. Arts is getting up the inside. Premise down the outside with So Dazzling. It's Pennyweka and Premise. So Dazzling between them. Then Arts back on the rails. It's Pennyweka. She's lifting Pennyweka from Premise and So Dazzling. They beat off Arts. It's Pennyweka trying to fend off So Dazzling. She does so and becomes a Dual Oaks winner. Pennyweka goes on to win it by 2 lengths to So Dazzling. A gap back to Premise third just in front of...
This is one of the great stories of this season's racing. And Pennyweka won Dual Oaks, taking out to the Australian Oaks in such dominant fashion. Her trainer, Jim Wallace, is on the line. Jim, a very good morning to you. Great to be chatting with you. And I know you were in two minds about heading to the Australian Oaks, but looks like it was most definitely a decision that paid off.
Certainly did. I originally said I wouldn't make the second payment, but after she won at Wellington and came home and did so well, we changed our minds, and fortunately the syndicate agreed with me, and it all worked out rather well.
And you had jockey Damien Lade aboard, and he's of course enjoyed great success with New Zealand horses, and he was very, very comfortable, wasn't he, heading towards the turn? He was the last one off the bridle, wasn't he?
Yeah, we talked about it beforehand, and he said, I'll just find something back and we'll just smoke our pipe and wait, and that's why it pound out. And, he had plenty of horse left under, and he said to me afterwards, he said, I still had another couple of lengths if I'd needed it. So, yeah, it was very, very satisfying for everybody.
Jim, it's a long way, congratulations first of all, it's a long way from Opaki to Randwick and all the travelling involved. How did you enjoy the experience of being back on the circuit and back on the big stage and taking on Waller and James Cummings? How did you enjoy Pennyweka's weekend?
Well, Michael, my experience is that winners are always grinners. I had a great time. The filly, the only concern I had leaving home was that she mightn't travel that well because she'd never been away out from home a night in her life. But she just took to it like a duck to water. She was an old top. She just kept on licking the bowl clean and drinking the water bucket dry, and that's the way she is. And she's actually on the way home now. She's halfway down the island, and the reports, she never left anything on Saturday night after the races. I put her in the truck at 5 o'clock on Sunday morning, and she got to Auckland last night and licked the bowl out, and she's on her way down now, and they tell me she's as happy as a sandboy. So, we're just lucky to have the right animal to do the job with.
Jim, we now know she can travel and she can win and she can handle wet tracks and she can handle high-class opposition. What's the race or races you would like to target with Pennyweka, whether that's next season or the season after? What's the one you think about when you're thinking about her future?
Cup,
What's that?
The 2024 Melbourne Cup.
All right. How do you get there? What's the plan to get her ready to be a Melbourne Cup horse next year?
Well, that's yet to be decided. But you asked me what the long-term plan was, and that's it. What we fill in the interim, well, that's yet to be worked out. But I've got all the programs and things from all the racing jurisdictions around Australia and New Zealand coming to me, and I'll spend the next couple of months pouring through them and working out some sort of a plan, and then we'll see if we can make the plan work.
I'm sure she'll be right up there and be competitive come that 2024 Melbourne Cup. Jim, tell me about the syndicate, because for people at home who maybe aren't aware of the syndicate, there's 70 people in Pennyweka, and they're enjoying a hell of a time, aren't they?
They're having a great time. They are having a really good time. About 40 of them turned up at Sydney on Saturday. So yeah, it's been a great thing. I mean, it's my brother and his wife Janine. They put together these Weka syndicates. I think she's the 8th one. Everything else they've had has been a winner, and I think they might have another one on Wednesday at Christchurch. Mary Weka goes round again down there on Wednesday. But they're all ordinary people off the street that might have 1 or 2% in the horse, and they just think it's great. I mean, they can go to the pub on a Saturday night and puff their chests out and say, I also won the Oaks, and in Sydney, and no one can argue with him. You know, it's just a great thing for racing generally. More people involved, and the enthusiasm of people is unbelievable. So, you know, I think it's fantastic.
Jim, often with these syndicate-owned mares, they have to be sold at public auction when they finish racing. You guys bred this horse, so I presume, and I could be wrong here, that this isn't an ownership syndicate, it's a leasing syndicate, and I presume you'll be retaining Pennyweka back in your ownership once she's finished racing?
Well, she's definitely, the ownership is with Les and myself. The rest of it's a racing syndicate. What we do at the end of the racing, Michael, is up in the air. But I mean, in the meantime, she's a racehorse, and that's it. So we'll cross all those other bridges when we come to them.
Jim, it's been a remarkable but very tough month for the family. You lost your daughter-in-law, and our condolences from all of us on weigh-in for that. And of course, you lost your mum. What's it like when you have those experiences, when you have those incredible highs with your family and people you care about, but they're coming on the back of those incredible losses? Is it comforting to have those moments together and to have something to smile about?
Well, the way it worked out, Michael, was unbelievably good. I mean, for the first time in 7 years, I've got 2 kids that live in America, and all 5 of my children were here with their children, and you know, that hasn't happened for a long time. And the way the cards were dealt, it worked out really well, and I think everybody drew strength and solace from one another. You know, it was a great time. The horse didn't hurt either, by the way.
Jim, thank you so much for your time this morning on Weigh In. It was really great to catch up with you, and I think everyone's just so delighted to see you take out both the Oaks and to be flying that Kiwi flag so high in Australia.
Well, it was great to be a part of it. When the Kiwis win 7 out of the 8 Group 1s at the championships, it's got to be a good week, doesn't it?
It sure is, and we're going to be getting to that later on, Michael, those fantastic stats from Australia. But for Satono Aladdin, huge ritual stud we talk so much about on the show, they got a wonderful victory, and just so good to see that form here in New Zealand. What we thought was potentially not one of the strongest Oaks, a lot of the stars had already departed for Australia, turned out to be so strong that it was able to translate over there.
And so strong the last 200 metres. Like, she was 3 wide the entire trip, and they came at her, and she was really good through the line. I'm not sure how strong that Oaks was either, to be honest, because a lot of the best fillies weren't there. But she has that Melbourne Cuppy type feel about her because she was such a good stayer. Wonderful for Jim and his family. The whole thing was just a fairy tale. It was a wonderful story. One of my favourite stories of the racing year, and a lot more to look forward to for her. So you mentioned a Kiwi domination over there at Randwick. That wasn't what they planned when they set the championships up.
No, 7 of the 8 Group 1s going to New Zealand breds. Speaking of those New Zealand breds, the next race that we look at is the Queen of the Turf. You've got Levante and also a Tissue who takes out the eventual win.
And a half to alcohol free, and a Tissue just cruised into it. A Tissue went to the front, and More Secrets giving chase. Forget the favourite. A Tissue raced 2 lengths clear from More Secrets second. Oh, anyone's guess for third, but a Tissue. She's ripping away here in the hands of Nash Rawiller. What a win in the Queen of the Turf. A Tissue bolts in. Hope in Your Heart stormed home to second. More Secrets third. Hinge from Mark.
She was dominant, wasn't she? A Tissue took out victory in the Group 1 Queen of the Turf over the mile with Nash Rawiller doing the riding by Savabeel. And Michael, for Go Racing, a New Zealand-based syndication company, they have plenty of horses across the ditch, and this is good to see a Kiwi product over there for them winning.
They're formerly trained here. Albert and his team have had enormous success in Sydney. They've won races like every second weekend in Sydney for ages, and it's a really hard thing to do. She's bolted in. Like, she has absolutely smashed them. She'll head to the Hollandale Stakes and then to the Doomben Cup. Albert's suggesting that she will race on next season, which is wonderful. So, look, Go Racing still have a few shares available in some of the horses they purchased at different sales. Regularly successful, doing a great job, and they believed in this horse. There was times last season you were sort of like, was this Tissue really going to make it? She wasn't getting out of the gate, she was being a bitch. And Chris Waller, as he does, just kept at it, kept at it, kept at it. His staff is so good at getting these horses, like a nature strip, to concentrate and do the right thing. And a tissue for Go Racing did that on Saturday.
We also had Levante in that race as well. She was super unlucky, wasn't she? And there is some talk about her heading towards the broodmare sale, potentially. That's up in the air.
She's entered for the Magic Millions sale. Spoke to Philip Brown on SENZ Radio on Saturday. He said, we're not absolutely certain we're going there. But if they do sell her, they want her to be retired. They don't want to sell her and see someone else race her on. So that might be where that's in a slightly grey area at the moment. We have about 3 shows to go on weigh-in before we finish our season. We will have a proper send-off and confirmation of the Levante plans over the next 3 weeks.
The next race that we look at was obviously the feature of the day 2 of the championships, and that was of course the Queen Elizabeth, and it was a match race, wasn't it, Michael, between Dubai Honour and Animo, and Dubai Honour really asserted his authority, although I did feel track conditions maybe didn't play into Animo's favour.
He was always going to be harder to beat on a wet track. He's been a very good horse on softer ground in Europe. He's not in their top 5 or even 10 horses Dubai Honour. So it's quite sobering, but put some context into this. Moanga run second and beat Animo, and so that wasn't the best version of Animo. I found Animo a bit dour for most of the autumn, and it's really hard to say that when you keep winning, but he hasn't been quickening and running away from fields. I think there's no chance they take him to Ascot. They can't afford to. I think they can stand him here and bring him in at a really good rate first season for Darley. They don't need to take him to Ascot, and that probably indicated, even at the mile at Ascot, the best Europeans might be too good for him. So I'll be stunned if he gets there.
Okay, heard it here first on weigh-in. Let's have a look at Explosive Jack next. He, of course, took out the Group 1 Sydney Cup, and Explosive Jack, obviously, Michael, is a product of Novara Park. Wonderful to see Jackalberry getting this win. He's a Derby king, isn't he? Explosive Jack, of course, won the Australian Derby, the South Australian Derby, and the Tasmanian Derby. Looks like he's just been crying out for the 3,200 metres.
And Ma Eustace getting another major 2-mile race, of course. They won the Melbourne Cup earlier this year. Really strong late, great, sort of unheralded New Zealand success. We don't think about Jackalberry much, but Novara Park, we'll see them later with Swainess. They've had such an incredible season, so we're going to try and get hold of them before the end of our season too, to find out more about what's going on with them. But Explosive Jack, I reckon they'll have another crack at the Melbourne Cup. Things didn't go well for them in that campaign last year. Very testing track. As you can see, there's horses 200 metres on the winner. It was just a really brutally hard race.
Yeah, and took the blinkers off, which I think might have been key factor as well with Explosive Jack. And interesting to hear that Novara Park are going to be standing Press Statement now. Press Statement is going to join that Novara Park roster alongside Swainess, King of Comedy and Staphanos. The next race that we highlight from day 2 of the championships is the Percy Sykes Stakes. This one was won by Chris Stilley, but it's the run of Ethereal Star that we wanted to focus on. Of course, a talented 2-year-old here in New Zealand, and just wasn't disappointing, but still just sort of battered away.
Andrew Forsman, I spoke to him last night, he said, look, she just couldn't go in the wet. So that's the jockey report. So Damien said, look, we tried. She got out there, her wheels were just spinning in the really heavy stuff, and that was probably half the horses at Randwick the other day. She's had a good first season, and I think she's going to be Andrew's flagship horse for next spring in Melbourne. I think she's a genuine Guineas filly. She's got really good tactical early speed. There's a lot more of Ethereal Star coming up. The winner, I believe, is part of the Lizzie Joel Syndicate horses, and she's such a cool person in racing, Lizzie, and she brings so many people to the table. She started her own racing syndicate thing company.
With Annabelle Neesham.
With Annabelle Neesham, who's one of her great mates. You know them far better than I do, and congratulations to them. It's just it's a really cool thing to pull off.
Yeah, and there's some good footage of her celebrating that win on Twitter. Very excited, and so she should be. We've got a break coming up here shortly on weigh-in, but as we've alluded to, 7 of the 8 victories during the championships were won by New Zealand breds, and we can relive them all.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Wellington's gone to the front. He's yet to be fully called upon. Lucky Swayness is with him. Wellington kicks. Lucky Swayness responds. Goes with him. Takes over now from Master 8. Cordyceps 6. It's Lucky Swayness. He's being made to work for it. He's a half a length over Wellington and Master 8. But he's simply too good. He's Lucky Swayness. And he beat Wellington. Master 8 rewarding together.
He was good, wasn't he? Lucky Swayness dominates in Hong Kong in the Sprint Cup, and he really won it pretty effortlessly, Michael.
Yeah, so from 14 back to 12. They're talking about the potential to go to Japan for one of the big sprints. He's got the Champions Day April 30th, the meeting Agon's going to, then potentially going to Japan, and then they're also talking about the potential to go to 1600 with him. So lots of options for the son of Swayness.
Yeah, really exciting stuff for Novara Park. Well done to all the connections. Well, we've got an extra member on our panel, and we say a very warm welcome to Bruce Sharrock. Bruce, great to have you with us, and obviously pretty understandable why we've got you in today, because there's lots going on, isn't there? And it's interesting to hear that we now have a potential partner with the TAB, and how NZTR feeling about all of that?
Look, in a word, excited. The short version is, you know, the process that the TAB has been through has really illuminated some of the, I guess, the future that we really need to look into. And where it sits right now is it sits before the Minister for approval. Look, we're excited. The board and myself are excited about what we can do. We've already got some work underway to see where we end up with this.
Okay, Bruce, if a deal is signed and the Minister has to sign off on it, but there will be a deal of some sort eventually, one would think, there would be a cash injection to the New Zealand industry. Some of that goes to the TAB, some to the other codes. How would NZTR prioritise how to spend any cash injection? What do you need to spend money on first?
Look, Mick, I think, you know, without putting too fine a point on too many things, we need to get our stakes funding right. We need to give confidence back to, I guess, our owners, our breeders, and people who want to engage in the sport. They need to be able to see that there is a future, and a positive future, from a stakes funding perspective. I think that's paramount. And so we've got a bit of work underway looking at that in anticipation of a positive outcome. So that would certainly be one. Look, we clearly have to balance the infrastructure requirements that we have in the industry. If you don't have tracks, you can't race. So we've got to make sure we continue to invest in those.
Where do we stand with tracks? Because there was a lot of talk when the Masara report first came out about centralisation and closure of tracks, quite simply closure. We've also now got synthetic tracks. A couple of double-ended questions for you. Are we still going to close some tracks? And winter's coming, Bruce. And sometimes that's very testing for us. Do we have the potential to change to synthetic racing on Saturdays, rather than just industry days, if needs be, if a Rotorua is too heavy to race on? So are we still going to close tracks, and can we use the synthetics better?
Well, let's do the second one first. There is a policy being developed at NZTR just around the use that, and I think it's leading into the preceding day up to noon, a decision can be made to move to a synthetic should the, I guess, surrounding turf tracks not be able to cope. So that's in train at the moment. And, you know, we're hopeful, well, not hopeful, that will come to pass. In terms of venues and continued venue rationalisation, absolutely. I've been around the country over the last month, 6 weeks, and made it very clear that we need to have a footprint right-sized for this industry going forward. I guess the way I look at where we are as an industry, it's a three-piece puzzle to me. First and foremost, we've got the partnership that is sitting on the table of the Minister right now. And if we get that done, that's one piece. The second piece is to get support around the Gambling Act reform. And that then allows us to put some form of net around the country.
Okay, and so that requires, just for people watching at home, that requires legislative change. So we're talking about geo-blocking. So the first thing is a partnership deal, which is likely to be entained. That's up to the Minister. The second part of the puzzle for NZTR, I believe you are looking to do, is if geo-blocking comes in, there'll be additional monies on top of the entained contract, which will provide extra funding and negate losses off. So that's what you see as the second building block for this?
Correct, and there are significant numbers tied to the net. So Entain has clearly structured a deal, and the TAB has structured a deal, whereby if they get the support of the reform of the Gambling Act, there'll be another substantial uplift both in guaranteed funding to the industry and also lump sums up front.
So what's part 3?
Part 3 is us. We need to get our venue structure right. I've promoted to our board, through our Audit and Risk Committee, is the creation of an industry fund. The short version is we need to get another revenue stream to de-risk any fluctuation from the TAB or the wagering side of our business, and we need to use our venues and the assets we have better than we are today. So look, the vision very, very simply is the creation of a fund that has a return to it that provides significant money. And I mean, if we use a round number, and I'm going to use round numbers, $500 million, if we can put those into a industry fund, even at 5%, it's another 25 million that drops into just as revenue. Forget the capital, that is there to underpin our industry. But the short version is if we get those 3 playing, we transform this business.
You can't talk about the specifics of the Entain deal, which again is not signed, but the potential partnering, because I know you're in a non-disclosure situation. But are you and the executive of NZTR happy with the figures and where it would put you?
Look, when it comes to money, you always want more, right? The short version is there's a couple of key components. First is the dollars and cents. But second, and this always struck me when I came into the role, Mick, is we would have funding certainty. We would have a window of 5 years where we know what we're getting as a base minimum. That allows us to plan and strategically plan. So go back to what you asked about our priorities were. It allows us to look at our stakes funding and go, look, we can actually put a stake in the ground here. We know we've got this coming in as a minimum. We can even inject reserves to ensure that we've hit those marks, knowing that we've got guaranteed sums coming down the pipe. At the moment, we have a model where every quarter it's reviewed. And as we saw at the back end of December in 2022, it was deemed to have a reduction.
So it's a bad way to do business, not knowing how much money you got coming in.
Well, I've been in business most of my life, mate. I've often controlled the revenue side. When you're not controlling the revenue side, it's a scary thing because you've only got a limited number of levers that you can pull to right or correct the ship.
Now, the whole tracks thing's fascinating, and we're going to, at some stage, see how that comes to fruition. But you still need jockeys. And our issue with jockeys is that we keep suspending them all the time. And are you happy enough that the whip rule is being implemented and is actually working in the favour of New Zealand racing? Because, Bruce, I'm going to take a lot of convincing that's true.
Yeah, look, and I'll throw to a little bit here. Darren Balcom is my COO. So Darren is heading up racing operations, and at the moment we have gone out with, for consultation with both the Jockey Association and the RIB, just to improve and I guess give some flexibility to that whip rule. It would appear that it's being, I guess, mediated to the extreme, and
well, we keep suspending people all the time, Bruce. We don't have enough
us.
jockeys. We can't afford to just keep putting them on the sidelines.
In saying that, though, Mick, we still have to adhere to the rules.
We do,
but we can apply some flexibility. Well, look, that's another question again, and I think that opens up a potential can of worms where fines are not really getting what we need to get out of it. What we do need to do is apply some flexibility whereby we're not having the volume of people stood down. And what I'm talking about is if there are a number of whip strikes pre the 100 and from the 100 to the finish line they're not using the stick as much as they were, let's have a look at the overall whip use as opposed to trying to rule in those certain sectors.
There's been some pretty dark times in New Zealand thoroughbred racing in the last 5 years, and there's been times where it felt like for people watching this show, it was stuffed. You go to the races, you go to the trials, it's stuffed, game stuffed. With the changes potentially coming through Entain or another partner, and Ellerslie coming on board, maybe some progress in a merger in the Waikato. Do you genuinely believe, no hype, no crap, do you genuinely believe there is light at the end of the tunnel and significant light for people who are watching this, who are paying their bills at Tuesday night at the kitchen table and actually want some real change?
Mick, I wouldn't have come in and taken the job if I didn't think there was a way through this. I've got better things to do with my life. The short version is if we can complete those 3 pieces, but we need to accept as an industry it's time to change. There is significant internal change that needs to occur. The parochialism that's ruled our industry for so long has to stop. We want people to be, I guess, parochial about their backyard, but not when it's paralysing the progress of the industry. So, you know, what I'm saying to, and the board's in full support of this, we need to have a look at what's best for the industry every time we make a decision. And if we do that, there is absolutely a way forward here. And so much so, I mean, if you look at the numbers, which I do daily, the short version is if we get a partnering arrangement, and we're on the cusp of it. And I think the other one, other than the money, let's pay attention to the fact that our industry will be promoted and produced in a fashion that we've not experienced before. That will grow wagering too. If we get that, if we get support around our the Gambling Act reform, and we can take a practical approach to our venues, this industry can double the size in which it is today. Now, if we do that, everybody's going to get $1 if they're any good and if they want to be any good.
One quick one, and we're running out of time. Thank you for coming in on Easter Monday morning. There was talk in the process about Ladbrokes Entain supporting a racing carnival. Do you have any idea how that would look?
No, look, we don't. I mean, there's a $10 million sum thrown at what they term a carnival. We understand that they're very keen to promote wagering growth. And what the framework of that will look like, I'm not sure at this point, but we're very keen to sit down, and we already are formulating some ideas inside our own heads as to how we could take advantage of that. And again, it's one of those things I talk about. It promotes the industry. It gives us impetus to engage again as a genuine professional sport. And that's where we've got to get. We've got to get to the stage where we're considered as one of the 3, 4, 5, 6 professional sports in this country, and people want to engage with us.
Bruce, thank you so much for your time. It's flown by. Always great to have you in the studio. And from us here at Weigh In, it is great to be joining you on this Easter Monday morning. I hope you enjoy racing.